I thought it was just a mistake, a mortgage document with my name on it for a house I'd never seen. But then, my parents called. "We've decided," my mother said. "It makes sense that you pay Selin's mortgage. You're the one with a career." I almost dropped the phone. But what came 3 days later made my blood run cold. A second letter. From a bank I'd never used, referencing a $290,000 business loan. And I was listed as the guarantor. That's when I realized. They didn't just decide I should pay her mortgage. They decided I should take the fall. For all of it. My name is Amara Wieland. I'm 33, a financial advisor based in Nuremberg, Germany. I've never asked my family for money. Not once. I studied, worked, saved, built my life from scratch. Quietly, carefully, without shortcuts. But apparently, that made me the perfect target. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I was leverage. The one who always had it together. So of course I could carry the weight of those who didn't. What started with a forged mortgage turned into a trap that could have cost me everything. My savings, my credit, my license to practice. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about why silence can be dangerous, and why financial abuse doesn't always look like theft. Sometimes it comes wrapped in family loyalty. If you've ever been made to feel responsible for everyone but yourself, if you've ever been punished for being the strong one, stay. You're not alone. And if this story makes you pause, hit subscribe. Because what happened to me isn't rare. It's just rarely spoken out loud. I used to think our family was just structured. That was the word my mother always used. Some families are free-flowing, Amara, but we're structured. You've always needed structure. What she meant, of course, was control. Growing up in Nuremberg, I was the predictable one, the A student, the one who packed her own lunch from age 11. My little sister Selin was the creative one, which meant she could flunk half her classes and still be treated like a misunderstood genius. When I got into Leipzig for university, no one asked how I'd pay for it. When Selin dropped out of art school the second time, my parents bought her a new MacBook to help her find her path. I didn't complain. I learned early that fairness was optional, but peace was precious. After graduation, I moved to Nuremberg and built a quiet, steady life. A studio flat, a modest clientele, a solid savings buffer. Nothing fancy, but mine. Then came the envelope. A thick, creased letter from a Sparkasse branch in Weissenfels, nowhere near where I live or bank. Inside was a document titled Vorläufige Bürgschaftsanfrage, a pre-guarantee inquiry, for a $290,000 business loan. My name was listed in bold as the guarantor for a real estate acquisition, backed by a property in Hohenmülsen. I read it 3 times, heart thudding. I had never seen this address. I had never agreed to anything. But somehow, they had everything. My tax ID, my earnings summary, even my old signature. I remember standing in my kitchen, the kettle screeching behind me, untouched. Not because of the forged mortgage. Not yet. This was something else. Something deeper. Planned. Precise. A chill crept over me. Not panic, but recognition. My parents hadn't just crossed a line. They had drawn it years ago. I had just never dared to look down. I didn't call them right away. Some part of me still hoped it was a clerical error, or a strange coincidence. Or maybe, just maybe, Selin had tried to take out a loan in her name and someone mixed up the paperwork. But deep down, I knew better. 3 days later, The answer came. Not as an apology, not even as an explanation, but as a decision. I was at my desk, sorting client invoices, when the phone rang. Mom. Her voice was breezy. Too breezy. Did you get the Sparkass letter? No greeting. No build-up. What is going on? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. A pause. Then she exhaled sharply. Look, your father and I have been thinking. Selin's been struggling. You know that. And that apartment she's renting in Halle? It's draining what little she has left. I stayed silent. So we found a small house in Hohenmulsen. Good area, affordable, a smart investment, really. And with your credit, it went through without issue. My stomach dropped. Mom, you used my name. Don't be dramatic, she snapped, the mask slipping. We needed a solution. This helps everyone. Everyone except me. She softened again, or tried to. Sweetheart, you've got stable income, no kids, no mortgage of your own. You're in a perfect position to support the family. You always have been. I swallowed. Hard. And then she said it. We've decided. It's time you took over Selin's mortgage. It's only $1,850 a month. Manageable, right? Manageable. As if it were a gym membership. As if I had signed up. I said nothing. And that silence, I think, irritated her more than shouting ever could. Amara, this is how families support each other. I remember staring at the wall, hands numb in my lap. This wasn't support. This was erasure. They hadn't asked. They'd acted. Then called it love. And somewhere deep inside me something snapped. Not loud, but final. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I cleaned the flat, wiped the kitchen counters, reorganized my spice rack, ironed pillowcases I never iron. Because if I paused for even a second, the thoughts would start again, and I wasn't sure I could survive them. But I couldn't distract myself forever. The next morning I called Layla. She worked at a private bank in Leipzig now. Sharp, discreet, unshakable. And she owed me a favor. I need your eyes on something, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. There's a property in Hohenmulsen. Somehow. It's in my name. I emailed her the Sparkasse letter and all the details I had. Then I waited. Hours crawled. I folded laundry that didn't exist. When she finally called back, her voice was quieter than usual. Amara, do you know about a company called Weiland and Partner GBR? My stomach clenched. My father's name is Ulrich Wieland. Then yes, that's him. He registered the company last year. Real estate development, on paper. No real capital. The address is your parents' house, the same house you grew up in. I said nothing. They used the mortgage as leverage, she continued, to secure a $290,000 bridge loan from a regional investment group. But the title deed, the collateral, lists you, which means, if the business fails, they can legally pursue you to recover losses. A cold, metallic silence filled my head. They hadn't just bought a house. They'd constructed a financial structure on my back, one that could collapse at any time. And I wasn't just a borrower. I was the fallback plan, the guarantor, the silent one, the dependable one. I opened my drawer, pulled out the contract Mum had once sent me to review, just for fun. My signature wasn't on it. But it didn't matter anymore, did it? Because they still had my tax ID, my income statements, my trust, or what was left of it. Somewhere between the numbers and the names, I stopped seeing a family. and started seeing a strategy. I didn't scream. I didn't call. I didn't write angry paragraphs at midnight. I went silent. But this wasn't surrender. It was strategy. I started with what I knew, their patterns, how my father liked to register things under other people's names for convenience, how my mother knew exactly how to mimic my signature, down to the pressure points on the loops. So I did what I'd been trained to do in finance, track the paper trail. I ordered a full Grundbuchauszug from the district office, requested the Darlehensakte, the loan file, from Sparkasse under the Datenschutzrecht. What came back made my stomach twist. My old tax return, a fake employment agreement listing me as a financial officer in the company, a digital signature I'd never seen before, but under my name. They had gone farther than I feared. At first I felt faint. Then, sharp, focused. I compiled a dossier. Dates, emails, legal definitions, screenshots of all unauthorized uses of my information. Then I made 3 calls. First, to Verbraucherschutz Bayern, then to a friend of a former client, an attorney specialized in Bürgschaftsmissbrauch. Finally, to the Kreditabteilung of Sparkasse. I asked to speak to their Risiko management officer directly. I was polite, precise, and firm. No drama, just facts. I believe I'm being used as an unknowing guarantor for a commercial loan structured through familial manipulation and forged consent. I'd like to report that, formally. They took it seriously. I received a case number. Then I turned to my family. 1 email. Subject line: Rechtliche Klärung, keine weiteren Kontakte gewünscht. As of today, I withdraw all informal permissions ever presumed. Any communication must go through legal channels. Further use of my identity will be treated as criminal action. I pressed send. Then I blocked every number I knew from home, even Selin's. That night, I stood by the window and looked down at the city lights. I didn't feel peace. Not yet. But I felt power. Quiet, grounded, and completely mine. The first backlash wasn't from the courts. It came through whispers. 3 days after I sent the email, my uncle forwarded me a screenshot from a private Facebook group in Naumburg. My mother had written a post filled with trembling phrases like, "After everything we sacrificed," and "Some daughters forget where they came from." Then, "We only asked for help with a house. Now we're facing threats and legal action from our own child." There were comments, dozens, sympathy, disgust, self-righteous lectures, most from people who hadn't seen me in years, and none who had seen the mortgage file, the fake employment contract, the signature that wasn't mine. Then came something real. A formal letter from Sparkasse Compliance arrived in my mailbox, stamped and sealed. They had opened a preliminary investigation and suspended all further payouts on the $290,000 loan. Until the matter was resolved, the loan file would be held, and I would not be held liable. They used one phrase that stuck with me: Identitätsbezogene Unregelmäßigkeiten. Identity-related irregularities. It sounded clean, technical, but I felt its weight like a sentence lifted off my spine. I didn't call my parents, but they didn't wait. My mother came to my apartment building that Friday. I spotted her from my second-floor window, dressed in her good winter coat, holding something in her hands. She stood at the entrance, rang 3 times, then slid an envelope through the mailbox. Inside was a handwritten note. "Amara, don't do this. We're family. You know how hard things have been for Selin. Don't let outsiders twist your thinking." Outsiders, meaning Sparkasse. My lawyer. The data protection officer. She didn't see that I had become an outsider too. By drawing a line. I didn't reply. but I saved the note. 2 days later, a local newspaper published a short piece. Nuremberg woman reports family for financial misuse in $290K housing deal. No names, no photos. But those who knew, knew. Selin posted a story that night. A blurry photo, crying eyes. Caption: My own sister wants to make me homeless, all because I'm not as stable as her. I turned off my phone, made a tea, sat on the balcony and watched the lights move across the city. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. This wasn't about revenge. It was about repair. The letter came folded in thirds. Sparkass letterhead. No drama. Just truth. I opened it with steady hands, though my heart wasn't so calm. Upon completion of our investigation, we confirm Ms. Amara Wieland bears no legal or contractual responsibility in the mortgage or commercial loan related to the property in Hohenmilson. Signatures and documentation were submitted without verified consent. Liability has been reassigned to the primary applicant, Ulrich Wieland. No apology, no emotion. Just the kind of clean, sterile language I used to admire in risk reports. But this one made me pause, because this wasn't just about a loan. It was a declaration that what they did to me was real, and that I wasn't crazy for naming it. I folded the letter and slipped it into a plastic sleeve, filed it next to my passport, birth certificate, and the one photo I still kept of Selin. Then I logged on to Immowelt, filtered listings by Regensburg, detached, and quiet. It wasn't about running away. It was about restarting, without negotiation. I signed the lease 2 days later. The apartment overlooked the Danube. No shared walls, no mailbox with my parents' name still printed beneath mine. Just mine. As I packed the final boxes, I found old letters, school reports Mum saved, a sketch Selin drew in 4th grade of us holding hands. For a second I felt that strange, sick pull, not of regret, but of what-ifs. What if they'd asked instead of assumed? What if they'd protected instead of used? But that version of them had never existed. I slipped the drawing into a folder, didn't tear it, just closed the lid. Because healing doesn't always come with forgiveness. Sometimes it arrives with distance. I didn't send a goodbye message, didn't announce a new chapter. I just changed the address. As the movers drove off, I sat on the floor of my new flat, back against a cold white wall. For the first time in a long time. No calls, no accusations, no invisible leash tied to someone else's mess. Just silence. And it felt like mine. If you've ever been made to carry a burden that was never yours, if silence was your only way out, then maybe, like me, you understand that walking away isn't weakness. It's clarity. Would you have done the same in my place? Or stayed, hoping they'd finally see you? Tell me below. Not for them, for you. Because sometimes telling your side is the first way back to yourself.